They once stood side by side as musical revolutionaries, but fame, ego, and heartbreak would soon tear them apart. John Lennon and Paul McCartney weren't just bandmates. They were co-creators of a cultural movement, two halves of a songwriting force that redefined modern music. But after the Beatles disbanded, their legendary partnership unraveled into something much darker, a lyrical feud played out across their solo records. There were no shouting matches on camera, no tabloid fistfights, just sharp, poetic jabs recorded in studios, broadcast to millions. It was McCartney who drew first blood. His 1971 solo album Ram didn't name names, but its message was loud and clear to Lennon. In the track, Too Many People, Paul accused someone, very likely John, of preaching values they no longer practiced. The line, "You took your lucky break and broke it in two," was widely interpreted as a dig at Lennon's choices after the Beatles, especially his public activism and experimental music with Yoko Ono. To Lennon, the insults didn't stop there. Tracks like Dear Boy and Three Legs seemed to carry more subliminal jabs. And then there was Ram's controversial back cover, two Beatles in the act of mating, seen by many, including Lennon himself, as a crude metaphor for betrayal. And Lennon? He didn't let it slide. He loaded his own arsenal. Fueled by rage, Lennon stormed into the studio. But he wasn't alone. He called in George Harrison, who, like Lennon, had his own history of friction with McCartney. Together, they crafted How Do You Sleep, one of the most scathing musical attacks in rock history. Lennon didn't hold back. The lyrics weren't vague or symbolic, they were direct hits. He mocked Paul's solo success, referenced the bizarre "Paul is dead" conspiracy, and delivered the coldest line of all, "The only thing you done was yesterday." That lyric cut deep, reducing McCartney's post-Beatles work to a mere shadow of their former glory. Harrison's slide guitar added emotional weight, seething, slashing, almost vengeful. Lennon would later say George had never played better, as if he, too, had something to prove, or release. The bitterness wasn't just musical, it was personal. Years earlier, Harrison had walked out of the Beatles over creative tensions with McCartney. In later interviews, McCartney downplayed his intentions. He said the jabs were minor, just reflections of his irritation with John's preachy phase. But by then, the damage had already echoed across airwaves. Lennon, for his part, admitted years later that How Do You Sleep revealed more about his own emotional turmoil than about Paul's music. Time would soften the wounds, but the scars remained etched in vinyl. Though Lennon and McCartney would eventually reconcile, at least in part, this chapter remains one of the most raw, human, and painful moments in rock history. Not just a feud, but a mirror reflecting two geniuses struggling to redefine themselves without each other.